Let me go ahead and start recording. Okay, welcome everybody to our multi-club Supervisor District 4 special election Democratic Candidates Forum. Oh, that's a mouthful. I think I've changed the name a few times and never arrived at one that was less of a mouthful. So that's what we're going to go with today. My name is Sonara Velasquez. I'm Director of Clubs for the San Diego County Democratic Party. And I am as the Director of Clubs, I work with the Club Development Group, and we've worked together to put together this forum with the candidates. However, are all the candidates present? The candidates can raise their hand, and we want to make sure that they're renamed to say candidate. So I see Janessa Goldsmith and Monica Montgomery Stepp. Is Raquel Vasquez also with us? Yes, she is, Mayor Raquel Vasquez. Okay, so we're going to put candidate on your name too. Okay, well, our club development member, Deanna Aguirre, is going to be leading this forum, and I'm going to let her take it away if that's okay. Deanna, is there anything else I need to say before we get started?
I think we are good to start. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to facilitate today's forum. We have our three Democratic candidates, Janessa Goldbeck, the CEO of Vet Voice Foundation, San Diego City Council Pro Tem Mayor Monica Montgomery Stepp, and Lemon Grove Mayor Raquel Vasquez. Before we begin, I will walk through the process. As a reminder, this forum is being recorded today. Everyone except the candidates will be muted. All the questions the candidates will be asked today have been submitted by the various clubs. If a club member is present, they will be able to ask the question themselves, but they must ask the question in the format that it was submitted. We will not take any follow-up questions unless time permits at the end of this forum. Each candidate will be giving 3 minutes for an introduction and 3 minutes for a closing statement. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. Candidates, please take note of the timer, and I will also announce when your time is up. We are scheduled until 5:30 p.m. At 5:15, we will close the discussion and allow for closing comments from the candidates. If we have any time remaining, we will take questions from the clubs that did not submit any in advance. With that said, there will be 2 rounds. We'll focus on the first round. Again, if any remaining time, we'll go through the second round. So in order to start, what I've done is I've selected a number. So I'll ask the candidates to select a number from 1 through 20, and then whomever chooses the number that's closest to the number I selected will go first, and so on.
Diana, before we start, I just want to point out, I'm getting some text messages that people are not being allowed in the room because we've reached the maximum capacity of 100. So I've gotten 2 text messages to that effect. Not quite sure what, if anything, I can do about that. We are recording this, so as we start, I'm going to see if there's anything that can be done. Does anyone know more about Zoom than I do, and therefore could say, is there something that can or should be done about this limit?
Does anyone have a paid premium account that they can offer?
This is a paid premium account. Let's see. Yeah, it's a pro account, so
There shouldn't be restrictions. Link.
So are we using the party's Zoom account, or are we using something else? Oh, so they might not have the higher or because I think the limits.
The party had this problem before and they resolved it in some way, the limit of 100.
Alec, Elsie Slater, do you have a question
yes, I do.
To this?
Does anybody have a Zoom account that allows you to go over 100?
I really don't want to switch the link in the middle now. This has been sent out to lots and lots of people. I think we're just going to, John has given that we can be streaming on YouTube. So I will try to facilitate that. Yeah. John, I may make you a co-host so that you can stream it on YouTube, because my YouTube, I don't think I've ever fully gotten that set up. So
Are we also streaming on Facebook?
We are not streaming on YouTube or Facebook, but I can certainly try to do that.
I'm going to go ahead and just move forward with the selection of the number, if that's okay. So, Janessa, do you want to pick your number 1 through 20?
Sure, 11.
Monica
8.
and Raquel.
15.
Okay, so my number is 16. So we'll go with Ms. Vasquez. And then Ms. Goldbeck. Hold on for a second. And then what we'll do is we'll rotate the order. If that's okay. So now, are we ready to start, or do we want to wait until we can stream it?
I think we're going to have to just get started. I'm going to go ahead and try to stream it. It's saying I need to stream it on my personal Facebook account, which I'm not in a hurry to do if I were to stream to Facebook. So I'll look at doing it to YouTube instead. So go ahead and get started, and I'll work on the streaming and send out a note as soon as I can.
And then do we have the timers ready?
Yep, I can serve as timer. Just quick check. Can everyone read this, or is this just like, okay. All right. If you see the ducks, you have 30 seconds left. And the paper is 15. Ducks 30, paper 15. I'll try to come up with a better system later.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and start. I think what the first question is, please describe your public service experience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raquel Vasquez, Mayor for the City of Lemon Grove.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Raquel, but do we get intros first or go straight into the questions? I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, you're right. The introductions, thank you for that.
And real quick, when you announce intros or questions, let me know, because I'm setting my timer. And again, 30 seconds, 15 seconds.
Okay. All right, so let's take a step back. We're starting with the 3-minute introductions.
As mentioned, my name is Raquel Vasquez, Mayor for the City of Lemon Grove, and I've served since 2016, making history as the city and county of San Diego's first African-American female mayor. My unwavering commitment to public service has been evident through my tenure in service, leading to my re-election as mayor in 2020. Before becoming mayor, I served as a council member and a planning commissioner for the city of Lemon Grove, and I was actively engaged with the community, volunteering my time and expertise to various community groups, associations, and city task force. It was during this period that my passion for public service flourished. With more than 25 years of professional experience in city government, public relations, I bring a wealth of knowledge and experience and expertise to local leadership. Putting people and community first is always at the forefront of my priorities, identifying key focus areas as mayor for the city. Those include boosting budget transparency, enhancing public safety, and spearheading maintenance and infrastructure projects to improve our quality of life. I aim to create a more inclusive and prosperous Lemon Grove through these fundamentals and these pillars. Through my steadfast leadership, I continue to shape a brighter future for the city, leaving an indelible mark on our community. Now, entering this race was not an easy decision. Let me tell you, it was with careful thought and consideration and many discussions with my vast network of supporters, but most importantly, my family. My husband and I, we actually went together to the voter registrars to acquire the paperwork to run for the vacated County Board of Supervisors seat. And that is what has brought us to the forum today. But I want to share with you that, now this is important, I have decided not to fill out the candidate paperwork and to appear on the ballot. And though I have the expertise, the qualifications, and ability to serve the residents in District 4, I will be taking a step back. And I am looking forward to building consensus on other pathways to help communities grow and prosper. And I wish the candidates all the best as they campaign to become District 4's next County Board of Supervisor. And I wholeheartedly look forward to working with you. Thank you.
All right. CEO, Ms. Goldbeck, you can go ahead with your introduction. 3 minutes.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Janessa Goldbeck. For those of you I don't know, I was born and raised right here in San Diego County. My mom was a public school teacher and my dad drove a tow truck. I was really fortunate to grow up in Encinitas, and I don't think a family like ours, working class, middle class, could afford to live there anymore. And I think that one of the reasons why I'm so interested in shaping public policy, why I've dedicated my life to it, is because I believe that we all deserve to grow up in safe, healthy, and beautiful communities. San Diego County can be that for everyone, but we're facing some really big challenges. A little bit about me, I got my start as a political organizer for human rights in college. I was the national organizing director for a student movement to get the US government more involved in ending the genocide in Darfur. I moved to Washington, D.C. right out of college and spent the next few years there working as a human rights advocate, learning how to build coalitions, to pass legislation federally, and work with administrations to impose policies that protected civilians in conflict zones. From that work, I came across many situations where we had humanitarians on the ground who were attempting to provide security, shelter, and services to refugees and needed to have military protection around them. And it became very clear to me very early on that the folks who were providing the protection didn't always speak the same language as the humanitarians. And that in a conflict zone translated into some really dangerous situations. So I decided to do something about it and went and got what I call an extreme master's degree in military speak. At the age of 26, I joined the Marine Corps. Not a whole lot of openly lesbian progressives who enter the Marine Corps at the age of 26, but I thought it was really important to get this experience so I could come back out as a more informed and better advocate. I ended up falling in love with the Marine Corps. You know, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were not ones that I ever deployed to, and I'm actually very grateful for that. But the actual service of being around people from all walks of life who are working together for a common cause, who might have different political backgrounds or beliefs, really spoke to me. And my job as a leader in that organization was to build up young folks who were looking to take their next step in life. And so that really spoke to me. I ended up staying in for almost 7 years as a combat engineer officer. Probably would have stayed in longer, but two things happened. Trump got elected and my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I came back to San Diego on something called humanitarian orders so I could take care of my mom full time. I've been here ever since. I now run a national veterans advocacy organization representing over 1.5 million vets and military families. Our job is to lift up their voices in policy debates at the federal, state, and local level. And I'm really proud to say that we've been successful at doing that. I'm here today because it really matters to me what happens here. This is where I was born and raised. This is where I live. And I think that I can bring my experience and expertise to the Board of Supervisors and make a real change for San Diego County.
Thank you. And now we have Mayor Pro Tem Monica Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for spending your Saturday afternoon with us to decide and hear from us on this very, very important race. My name is Monica Montgomery Stepp. I am running for County Board of Supervisors. I am the daughter of entrepreneurs, the wife of a retired union electrician, lifelong San Diego resident, except for my college years in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm really excited about the opportunities that we have here with this race. Some of you hopefully are familiar with my work at the City Council. I ran in 2018 because I really wanted to build a bridge within government and build trust between government and my community. And I ran on the idea that we can make that work. My pillars of governance are police reform, reimagining what public safety feels and looks like to a broader set of our community, economic opportunity for all, and also safe and healthy communities. And within my time at the City Council, I'm currently overseeing the council process for a $5.2 billion budget. I also established the Office of Race and Equity, which now is an integral part of our budgetary decisions that we make at the City of San Diego. I also have promoted and integrated alternative methods for law enforcement and community-based organizations working with law enforcement to reduce crime in our communities. We in District 4 in the Southeastern Division have seen a 55% decrease in homicide. We have also seen a 10% overall decrease in crime because of these changes working with law enforcement, but including community-based organizations. We also established the Independent Commission on Police Practices. We have fought for more funding for homeless outreach, fought for more funding for housing, passed the Tenant Protections Ordinance, and most importantly, I'm grateful to have established the peace movement, Let's Live, Let's Love. That has also contributed to our reduction in crime and violence in our community. So I want to bring that same type of leadership over to the county. I want to ensure the appropriate resources for our young people, our seniors, and also our homeless population, ensure economic opportunity for our working families. Those things are extremely important. And I want to build out that public safety ecosystem. We laid the foundation at the city. We want to take that more broad to do the work at the county. So much work needs to be done. So I would ask that you join me, you join the Secretary of State, Shirley Weber, SEIU Local 221, Laborers Local 89, UDW, Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, and many, many others join us in this race as we go for the seat to win the County Board of Supervisors District 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to the, oh, go ahead.
Chair Aguirre, Don Laughlin has a timer app, so we can spotlight him and we can use that as the timer.
That would be fantastic. And I just wanted to clarify, Mayor Vasquez, are you running, or did I hear that you did not pull papers? Can you please clarify?
Sure, yes, I did pull papers. In fact, it was my husband and I who took the journey together with lots of conversations with supporters as well as family.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So you are running as a candidate, correct?
No, I am not running as a candidate.
For Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
Okay, so then with that said, you are not participating in the forum, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I thought that's what I heard, but again, we just wanted to clarify that. So then this forum will be with CEO Janessa Goldbeck and Mayor Pro Tem Monica Montgomery's staff. So then what we'll do is just, we'll ask one question. We can start with, I'll pull up the bigger number. It would be, we start with Janessa and then go with Monica, and then we'll just rotate. Does that work? Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So then we're going to move on to the questions. And as we stated, whomever asked the question can ask, we'll be able to ask it. So the next one would be Ellis Pipkin Ellen. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, I would. And my name is Elise Pipkin Allen. And I'm the founder and co-president of Black and African Women Rise Democratic Club. And our question is, please describe your public service experience.
That to me first. Is the timer ready?
We're timing. Please start.
Okay. Thank you so much, Elise. I appreciate the question. So my public service experience begins as first working, as I mentioned earlier, as a human rights advocate, then serving 7 years in the United States Marine Corps. And for the last several years has included locally serving as the co-chair of the San Diego LGBT Centers Board, which is the largest provider of healthcare and services, behavioral health services to the San Diego LGBTQ community. I'm also a proud board member of Mana de San Diego, which is a Latina empowerment organization that seeks to provide educational benefits and mentoring to that community. I'm serve on the county's behavioral health advisory board, where we hear regularly from the behavioral health staff and director at the county and health and human services directors about what they need to do their jobs better and accomplish the most pressing tasks that they have on the front lines of the homelessness crisis and addiction and mental health crises. And then I also am, is it a 1 minute answer or 2 minutes?
No, it was supposed to be a 2-minute answer.
Okay. And I'm also a member of, I've been a member of San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria's Back to Work Housing Task Force, as well as his LGBTQ advisory. At the state level, I'm a board member of Equality California, the state's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization, as well as a member of the Victory Fund board. And in my professional life, I run an organization that seeks to increase interaction in our democracy from veterans and military families to make sure their voices are heard, not just on traditional veterans issues, but on things like the climate crisis, working in jobs, reproductive health care, et cetera. So that's those are some of the things that I've done. I'm very proud to be endorsed by folks like Senator Tony Atkins, Congressman Scott Peters, Congressman Mike Levin, Congressman Juan Vargas, and many others of our local state delegation who I've worked with over the past several years to get things done across every level of government. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Elise, thank you so much for the question. And just, I just want to clarify a title because I'm certainly not a mayor of any sort. So it is Council President Pro Tem, but it's a little distinction, but I just want to make sure I'm being respectful of everyone's titles. But yes, Ms. Elise, I'll start with just my work, my professional work that has been intertwined with public service. When I entered the field of law, I really did a lot of work to help people keep their homes at that time. It was around the crash that we were experiencing in the housing market in California around 2008. And then I also have been able to work for 3 elected officials within the city of San Diego, 2 mayors and 1 council member. I did leave the previous council member's office because in protest of some of the things that were stated by her, and I went over to the ACLU and I led a campaign on bail reform. It was a county campaign, but it was interacted with the state legislation at that time to reform the bail system. I am now a council member. I serve on MTS. I have served on SANDAG. I serve on the Reinvestment Task Force. I'm the first African-American woman at the City of San Diego to chair the Budget Committee. In addition, I have been involved with organizations like singing in church choir and also organizations around the community, the Bayview CDC, organization that does community development as well. But it really, really importantly and historically, I was one of 9 people in the state of California to serve on the California Reparations Task Force. And that work has really been life-changing. It's historic. And I know that we will be talked about for years to come because of the work that we've been doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Brendan Bardman on the call?
You do. I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Gotcha. Thank you. And just for everyone, it's easy to say generally you support affordable housing, but what specific policy changes would you have the Board of Supervisors make to decrease the cost of purchasing a home in San Diego County? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I'm going first. So thank you so much for the question, and you're absolutely right. It is easy to say that. I think everyone agrees that we should have more affordable housing, but oftentimes we face a lot of resistance in our communities. And sometimes the resistance is fair in the sense that we have to think about infrastructure and other things as we build. But mostly it is using sometimes tropes that are not acceptable as we welcome affordable housing into our communities. I have stood by votes that have moved forward projects in our community in order to build more affordable housing. But I think at the County of San Diego, there are quite a few things that we can do. Something that we have not talked about as much in government is having a real impact on driving the cost down by purchasing in large bulk some of the materials that are used in order to actually build. I think that we have the capacity as extremely large county to make an impact on the housing market overall. I also support some of the bills coming out of the state that allow for buy right projects that allow for them to be built, which streamlines the process. And also, time is money. And so it makes it a little bit cheaper to build. Another thing that I have done under my leadership with the Reinvestment Task Force, we were 1 out of 8 cities in the entire nation that were chosen to receive additional down payment assistance for people who want to buy a home. And so I think it takes all of those different efforts, using land that has not been used, especially in this situation, would be the unincorporated areas of the county. All of those solutions need to be at the table to drive the cost down and also just to produce more units overall.
So the crisis in this county is at every income level. We know that affordable housing, low income housing, middle income housing, people are struggling with the costs, and the county has a big role to play in actually addressing this problem at scale. So a couple of different things. One, I think we've all seen what's happening over at San Diego Unified School District. They passed a bond measure and now they're building workforce housing on San Diego Unified School District's land. That's housing for teachers, housing for janitors, housing for workers at the schools. The county has an opportunity to do that as well using county land. And I would really push for us to investigate ways the county can be a partner in building more workforce housing close to jobs, close to where people live. Additionally, I think that the way one of the biggest things that slows us down, as the council member mentioned, is time that it takes to go through processes. So there are bills at the state like SB4 that are looking to streamline that process and ensure that development happens faster in the appropriate places. And another thing that I think we could do, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research has come up with a less restrictive framework for VMT under CEQA. And I support using that new approach as a guideline rather than the traditional SANDAG method, which I think will allow us to build more and remove unnecessary restrictions and arbitrary restrictions on affordable housing. So those are a couple of key ways the county could really turn the ship and attack this at scale. Finally, I do think it's important to note that a lot of people in San Diego County are renters and they cannot afford the rents as rents are going up. The county has a pilot project right now providing subsidies to seniors who are on fixed income so they can stay in their homes. I'd like to expand and make permanent a program like that and include more populations like veterans, like first responders, so that people who are housing insecure aren't winding up on our streets.
Thank you. The next question is from East Lake Bonita Democratic Club. Nadia, do you want to go ahead and ask a question?
Thank you. Candidates, what do you plan to do about the current high death rates in the county prisons and the sheriff's refusal to adopt CLRB's suggestions?
Thanks so much for this question. We hear a lot about this at the county's Behavioral Health Advisory Board. We're hearing from the folks who are working, those workers, behavioral health workers in the jails. I think first and foremost, we have to divert people who are in acute psychiatric crises away from interactions with law enforcement and winding up in jail in the first place. So that means for the county, establishing more crisis stabilization units where folks who are experiencing mental health and psychiatric crises can go and be treated by people who are behavioral health professionals, expanding our MCRTs, our mobile crisis response teams, which are an alternative to law enforcement when somebody is having an issue on the street. These have already proven to drastically reduce the number of times armed officers are interacting with these folks, and they're able to connect to services in the field. So that's first, diverting people away from the jails. Two is making sure that the jails are staffed appropriately. If you look at the staffing at the county jails right now, the number of nurses that are supposed to be there, the number of people who are supposed to be there to do routine checks, they are just not meeting their staffing. And so that does mean we need to really invest in making sure that we have competitive pay and benefits for those folks so that we're attracting healthcare workers who can keep an eye on things. And then finally, one of the CLRB recommendations was to increase funding to support optimal investigative staffing. And that's something that the Board of Supervisors working with CLRB can actually do independently. Obviously, we need to work hand in hand with our law enforcement partners, but accountability is really key. And that starts with investigation and investigative authority. So I believe that those three things, making sure that we're keeping people who are at risk out of jails in the first place, ensuring that we have appropriate investigative resources, and then making sure that the jails are staffed appropriately with the right folks to keep people safe is important. A sentence to jail should not mean a sentence to death. So those are three things I'd like to see the county do.
Yeah, this issue is horrific, and it is an example of why we need a leader that has been proven to stand up to law enforcement. And there are a lot of different solutions that need to be implemented, but it does take political will to fight against a system that has been in play for a very long time. And for a long time, people have not cared about folks who die in jail. People have not cared about people's lives being interrupted by interaction with law enforcement that was not necessary. And so now that the attention is on this, it does take the political will to stand up against those who are perpetuating this system. And it doesn't mean that every person is bad, every deputy sheriff is bad, every police officer is bad. It does not mean that. But we are in a system that has allowed this behavior for so long. And so while there are a various amount, there's a state audit that Dr. Akilah Weber brought forward solutions to that in her bill. In the last cycle, she has endorsed me. That bill ultimately, I believe, was not signed by the governor. Now, our Senate Pro Tem, President Pro Tem Tony Atkins has a bill that would allow the county to create their own board with their own leadership to oversee the types of jail deaths that are going on right now in San Diego. I certainly support all of that, but we can get lost in that bureaucracy and creating a board here and a board there and not really giving it the teeth that it needs. And so with me there, it would have the teeth that it needs, and it would have someone that is going to stand up for what is right for all people, especially our most vulnerable populations that are sitting in the jails right now.
Thank you. The next question, Pacific Beach Democratic Club. Do we have Dina Feldman-Sklar on the call?
Yes, hi folks, good afternoon and thank you for your time today. My question is, how would you use your position as one of our supervisors to promote the success of the thousands of small family-owned businesses in District 4 and throughout the county?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I just had to piggyback on some of the regional work that I've done around this, creating the strategic alliance of ethnic chambers around the time of COVID to ensure that there was a larger group of folks that reached out to our small businesses to ensure they knew the types of services that were available for them through the funding that we were receiving from the federal government for them. I am a daughter of entrepreneurs, and so I grew up with the type of folks that had the audacity to take that risk and to own their own business, especially in San Diego, where there are quite a few barriers and restrictions. So some of my life's work has been around ensuring that this is fair and equitable. I also believe that the county can do a better job with regard to procurement and bringing in some of the smaller businesses to do a lot of the work that can be done at a county level. I think investing more time and energy into that is extremely important. But we have provided many resources working on building up the technical assistance for our small businesses at the county. I think is very important because of what it takes to do business in this region and in this county. So I have been on the record, major support for our small businesses previous to the pandemic and especially throughout the pandemic. And I will continue on in that role because our small businesses are really the heartbeat of our region and deserve the type of support that they need in order to be successful, especially in such a challenging time.
Well, I am a small business owner here in San Diego County. I opened my own business here in 2017. And I think one of the things that I hear most from fellow small business owners, folks who have even mid-sized business owners, that they're incredibly frustrated with the permitting departments, both at the city and the county. The county can do much better at fast tracking and assisting business owners who are trying to open a new property, who are trying to get the right permits, who might not have expertise in which box to check and what is what, because they've put everything into building their business and launching it. And navigating the bureaucracy can be an extremely complicated thing. So that I think would have actually the biggest impact. In the Marine Corps, I was a logistician. And that requires a lot of complex analysis of systems to find out where things get bogged down, where people get stuck, where they drop out and no longer are part of the economy. And so I think it's really important that we analyze our permitting processes, our development processes, and make sure that they're maximized to help small business owners be successful. We also have the opportunity as supervisors. There are neighborhood reinvestment grants and community enhancement grants. Those can be really impactful to create a much better environment for businesses to not just survive, but thrive. And supervisors have, I think something between $3 and $5 million in discretionary funding in that arena per year. So that's something that I think would need to be informed and have an equity-based approach to providing those grants, but is something that can make a big difference, especially in communities that really need it the most. When it comes to procurement, we have special carve-outs for veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, things like that. But I think we could expand and diversify those prioritizations and make sure that we're getting folks fast-tracked and prioritized from all walks of life and from all different diverse communities.
Thank you. The next question from Democratic Women's Club is Kathy Hyatt on the call.
Hi, I'm here.
You can go ahead and ask the question or your question.
Thank you for the opportunity. My question is, what legislation have you championed that you are the most proud of?
So as the CEO of Vet Voice Foundation, we have the opportunity to bring veterans into the mix and have their voices be heard on issues that really matter. A piece of legislation that our organization worked on for years and that I was really proud to be at the White House to watch President Biden sign into law is something called the PACT Act. The PACT Act is the largest expansion in veterans' healthcare benefits in 30 years, and expanded mental health care benefits to over 5 million new veterans across the country, which has a significant impact right here at home in San Diego, where people who are struggling, people who are going through a catastrophic health situation that might make them homeless or put them on the streets, they now have the opportunity to get that health care and the help they need for free to avoid that situation. And we have a goal here in San Diego County. Supervisor Fletcher started it. Was working with Congressman Mike Levin to get to functional zero on veterans homelessness. That's something that I would want to really focus on and continue. And I'm proud to be endorsed by Congressman Levin, who is looking forward to continue to make progress on that issue. Another piece of legislation that I was really proud to be a part of in a leadership role. In the last year, President Biden has designated over 550,000 acres across the country as permanent protected wilderness using the Antiquities Act. My organization was a outfront leader to get those national monuments designated in Colorado, Nevada, and Texas. I've been a proud coalition partner of an effort here in San Diego County to protect public lands that are already, whether they're Bureau of Land Management or National Forest Service, to bring those under one roof to protect our beautiful biodiverse wild spaces. This is a type of impact that I know that I can have here on the county. It's amazing to do things at the federal level and the state level, but it means so much more when it's in your own backyard. And I really am excited to put that experience to work for my hometown and home region.
Yes, thank you so much, Kathy, for the question. I really was in a position when I was elected in 2018 to act on the dreams of my ancestors, right? And so it's one of those things, of course, was establishing the Black Arts and Culture District. I think that is a place where every people from all walks of life are very, very excited about how that will be when it does come to fruition. It was something that had been in the works for over 20 years, and we were able to get that passed unanimously at the City Council, and now we're working on driving investment and revitalization to those 8 blocks on Imperial. So I'm very, very proud of that, and having driven over $100 million of investment into the various communities at this point. The other thing that I am proud of that also took 8 years of advocacy prior to me getting to City Council was the Independent Commission on Police Practices. This advocacy was started by Women Occupy, and also they partnered up with Earl B. Gilliam Bar Association along the way, and have been working on that for many, many years to actually get an independent commission on police practices. Day one in office, I asked the city attorney, what do we need to do to take this through the process? For 8 years, it hasn't worked. We want to take it through the process, made it to the ballot, got 75% of the vote then, and then we had to go work into implementation. That is not easy in a bureaucratic system. Many times we dealt with a lot of frustration. We took hundreds and hundreds of community meetings, but we are still working together and we are accomplishing our goal. And about a week ago, we were able to stand up the board with very, very, very qualified people. And we do this for a reason, and I'm still very, very proud of that work.
Thank you. The next question, Imperial Beach Democratic Club, Anna Webb.
Thank you for the opportunity and for holding this forum. Our most important issue in our beach communities is the cross-border pollution affecting our beach and our health. How would you assist beach communities to acquire more funding that's needed to remediate this crisis, overlooked for many years, which affects our economy, our military, wildlife, health, and ocean water?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I know that this is an extremely important issue for all of us, but especially in Imperial Beach. And I know also that Mayor Paloma Aguirre has been working on these issues, and she has endorsed me as a partner in a lot of these issues. But it is critical to all San Diegans to be at the table for this. It's not just an issue for one of us, but really an issue for all of us. And we have to be better at using our influence for issues that impact any San Diegan. So I would work at the county to ensure that there is additional pressure on our Congress members and federal agencies to pay attention to the issue. And I find it really, and not with our delegation necessarily, but I find it amazingly sad that we do spend a lot of time and money with regard to the border on other issues, but we don't deal with this particular issue. So I am lockstep there, and I think that bringing attention and continuing attention with this, and also partnering with other electeds such as Councilmember Vivian Moreno on this issue is extremely important as well. And so keeping the the attention on it. Bringing in our state and federal delegations are extremely important. And I'm committed to doing that and will continue to do so.
I grew up in the ocean. I'm an ocean baby. I'm an avid swimmer, diver. This issue is, I can only imagine, I'm not an Imperial Beach resident, but I just cannot imagine the frustration that you must feel, especially knowing that you know, millions of dollars have been appropriated to address it, and just feeling like it's not getting better. So I think it's imperative. So much of the problem starts, you know, across the border, of course. And so it's imperative that we are working together as a county with our federal delegation to ensure that they do not lose sight of this issue and that it is elevated, you know, to up to the highest ranks possible. This is an issue that not just affects, you know, people being able to go in the ocean, but obviously our tourism, the health and safety of our residents, and not to mention the environmental impact, which is devastating. So I know that there has been some action via Congress for appropriations, but it's clearly not enough. We need to make sure that the Mexican government is doing their part as well. And so that means engaging with our consulate partners and making sure that we have an open and robust and timely dialogue, that they are meeting their parts of the bargain as our parts are underway. And I would want to ensure that we are making that a county-wide initiative, not just a South Bay problem. I think it's been sort of looked at that way over time. So whether we're actively pursuing aggressively funding from the state or additional funding from the federal government, I think the key thing at the county is having supervisors that are going to prioritize this issue, keep it top of mind, and not let it fall to the wayside as something for South Bay to handle on its own.
Thank you. Our next question, Coronado Democratic Club, Frank King. Please ask your question.
Good afternoon. As a practical matter, the county has very little jurisdiction over the beaches of Coronado and Imperial Beach. An exception is the monitoring of water for pathogens which, if elevated, could result in beach closures. The current testing methodology has been criticized by some local leaders. What would you do to address their concerns about the testing?
From everything I've read and seen and talked about with folks, it's a couple of things. One, I think information is always good. We should always know what is happening, if we have technology that can show us bacterial levels that are harmful to people, we should let people know that those exist. So I believe in using that type of technology to our advantage. Where I think there's been a lot of friction is in how that has been rolled out and how it's been communicated, and whether or not folks felt like they've had enough time to respond appropriately and take the steps that having this better technology or more sensitive technology that is telling us more often that the beaches are unsafe or the water is unsafe, the impact that will have to the economy, to the businesses, to the tourism economy there. So I would want to examine if there was new technology that we were using, I would want to examine it, have an open dialogue with all stakeholders about the impacts, and make sure that we are including everyone in this discussion. Wow, sorry. Someone's Zoom bombing me. But I think that's true for all technology that we might be bringing in, whether it's smart streetlights or surveillance technology. You can't just spring this on people and call that transparent. But at the same time, when it comes to monitoring the health and safety of our air and water, if we have the ability to tell people that they are in an unsafe condition, we shouldn't be rolling that back. That should be open knowledge so people can make choices for themselves.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And I think even with little jurisdiction, it's an important issue because all San Diegans really deserve to enjoy what makes San Diego, right? Our beaches, our bays, our ocean, and the current testing methodology from what I have heard and seen about this issue, it was implemented without clear and transparent communication. And so oftentimes when that happens, it generates confusion about the difference between previous testing, current, and what that actually means for quality water or critical decision-making with regard to beach closures. So I think that the criticisms are certainly justified here. I think that the county should, promote the collaboration that is needed to get the true information out to our community members. And I would definitely advocate for the Department of Public Health to clarify their messaging and methodology to increase transparency for everybody that is involved, and ensure that the EPA is involved in working with our region on how to move forward with this issue. And so I've had experience doing that with different agencies and making sure that we communicate properly to our residents. And so in this situation, it would really eliminate a lot of the confusion. And although, folks are certainly would still be justified in being upset, I think the more information, the better.
Thank you. Our next question from Democrats of Environmental Action, Steve Rivera. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure.
Go ahead,
Can you
Steve.
hear me? Oh, Richard? Oh, okay. I'll go. Question is, will you act to ensure that all options for an incentivized rooftop and parking lot solar panels are included in the county's regional decarbonization framework, as these platforms on existing footprints have the potential to power our region without the harmful impacts that large-scale utility solar farms have had on our rural communities and ecosystems, not to mention the added expense of being charged to SDG&E ratepayers for long-distance transmission?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And I'll just state for the record that SDG&E, that was another hard-fought battle that I did not believe that our hands were tied as far as that franchise agreement was concerned. And I did vote against that. I think it's important in this context as someone who will stand up when it comes to our community members, facing the treatment that they have faced in that arena. So certainly my track record demonstrates my support for clean and renewable energy. And when I was elected, and I did vote to establish San Diego Community Power and sat on the inaugural board as the first woman to ever do so. And so I will focus on, at the county, certainly the regional decarbonization framework, and that it remains committed to clean energy, pushing my colleagues to support transitioning all residents and businesses to 100% renewable energy. I think that that's extremely important. And we also have to focus on battery storage when we talk about these issues, but with rooftop solar and incentivizing them, I'm certainly supportive of that and have been throughout my career. And so that will not change. We have to push forward. Unfortunately, there hasn't been as much sun as there normally is in San Diego, but certainly we're still luckier than a lot of folks. And so that my record shows that I am one of the few elected officials in this region that has actually pushed back on the century-old business model of how we receive energy. And I really am pushing that we change the way we think about renewable energy. This is certainly part of that conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we not only commit to renewable energy and solar on rooftops, things that make sense for our entire region, but also that we are going after every possible dollar to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible. The county has a regional decarbonization framework, and there are lots of plans in place, but without the resources to put them into motion, they'll remain just that, plans. We've seen a lot of frustration with the city about the lack of implementation plan for the climate action plan. Things are now starting to turn around and move in the right direction there, but we want to make sure the county is leading, not following, when it comes to implementing its own plan. So one thing that I would want to make sure we're doing is going after every possible state and federal dollar. The bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, these bills created billions and billions of dollars in subsidies and available funds for electrification, for additional solar projects, things that will make generational change in San Diego County. But right now at the county, we get our butts kicked when it comes to state and federal dollars when you look at per capita from other counties. And so we need to make sure that we change that we've got the right folks who have the right expertise in our county bureaucracy to go after that money and make sure that San Diego County is getting its fair share so that we can do this as quickly as possible. We know as a coastal region and a region that is surrounded by a lot of fire danger from the east, the climate crisis is especially acute for San Diegans. And if we are not leading on making these changes and making sure that we have renewable, clean energy sources, that we are taking advantage of every resource available to get us there as quickly as possible, we're going to feel it, not just as a theory, but really in our own backyards. So that's something that I'd be very committed and passionate about.
Thank you. The next question, Veterans Democratic Club. Do we have Scott on the call or Matt? Okay, I will go ahead and read their question.
I'm sorry about that, Madam Chair. This is Mark Rasek here. I'm treasurer of the Veterans Dem Club.
Are you able to ask the question that was submitted?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Both of the candidates, could you please talk about how you would help to reform the County Office of Veteran Services to increase veteran employment at the county and increase the efficacy of the department as veterans go to the department for help and assistance with many things, housing, disability, things like that. So please, thank you.
Yeah, well, first off, we need to make sure that that department is fully resourced and has the right staff and culturally competent staff. You know, people tend to think about veterans as a monolith, but in reality, the fastest growing demographics in our veterans community are women, and particularly Black and Hispanic women. So we need to make sure that the resources that are being offered at that office are relatable to everyone who walks through that door, not just a specific archetype of who a vet is or what they might look like or believe. I also believe that we have a ton of resources for veterans here in San Diego County. They're just really complicated to navigate. I know that as a veteran myself, as someone who is a VA patient, they're not connected. There's a lot of dead links. There's a lot of phone numbers that don't work. And so I think doing an annual audit of the office, how they're from a client's perspective, somebody walking into the office for the first time, seeking a service, making sure that they can go all the way through the process without being dropped and losing them along the way. I do think it's important that San Diego County has a supervisor in a position of leadership who understands the veterans and military family from a very personal perspective. You know, this district contains the highest density of vets and military families in the nation. And it's very important that we have a leadership at the county that is going to prioritize that population, because they are woven within the fabric of all of the things that San Diegans really care about getting better on, whether that's the housing crisis or homelessness or mental health and addiction. You know, veterans are in need of all of those services as well. So I think, you know, first and foremost, we need to make sure that we've got the right people and the right resources in that office, that they're connected to the rest of the ecosystem, whether it's federal or local providers, local nonprofits, and then ensuring that we're actually checking up on it regularly and that it's doing what it says it's going to do.
Thank you, Mark, so much for the question. I would agree and say that with regards to the Office of Military and Veteran Affairs, what I have heard from constituents is that when they reach out to the office for help, they usually don't hear anything back. And I've heard up to 6 months wait time for things that should be extremely simple for them to get assistance with. And so whether we need to go into the office and have someone review it, revamp it, reform it, and so that we can ensure that the county is in a position to be able to serve our veteran population in the way that it needs to be served. There's so many different services that are offered when we read about it. But if those things are not actually true, and then we're not really servicing our veteran community like we should. And so one thing that I did do within the district is, as the Live Well Center, as it was being built and decisions were being made about the Live Well Center, this goes to outreach and employment as to your original question, we ensured that the Office of Military and Veteran Affairs had a place within that center. Originally, it was only going to be probation and I think one other service, entitlement services, but we believe, especially based on our population in this entire district, that we need to make sure that we come to the people that we want to serve. And so having that office there, we will be focused on that type of outreach, making sure that employment needs are being met, all types of things that I'm hearing about, and understanding, kind of going through some of that process with my father when he was diagnosed with cancer, and ensuring that he could connect the dots. It's very hard. It was hard for me to do as a daughter. So I'm sure that it is hard to do on your own. And so reforming that office is extremely important.
Thank you. We just completed round 1 of the questions. So we will go to round 2 of the questions, and there are about 5 questions left. We are actually good on time. As I mentioned earlier, our goal was to wrap it up at 5:15 p.m. with closing comments. So we may have additional time for those questions that were not submitted. So with that, again, we'll start with round 2 of the questions with Ms. Pipkin Ellen from Black and African Women Rise.
Thank you so much for that introduction again. What have you done to protect and improve the quality of life for residents living in Board of Supervisors District 4, which we believe is the most diverse district in the county?
Ms. Elise, thank you so much for the question. I am the only candidate now that currently represents 21% officially of the entire district. And so within that, I think our leadership has had a ripple effect across the entire region. I will say just some things that we've done to improve the quality of life. Some are simple, some are not. I talked about our overall crime going down in the district, when in other communities it is increasing because of having the bold leadership to implement new ideas around law enforcement. That has been extremely important. Also, the way that we do our budgeting through the Office of Race and Equity, the county picked up what we did at the city and implemented it over at the county to make that change there as well. So that is having an impact on the quality of life for the entire supervisorial district. Also, the work that we did at MTS in leading on our public security there, we changed the way that system works, right? We're including homeless outreach in that system along the entire line, which runs through the entire supervisorial district. So there are many, many things that we have done and continue to do that have an impact on the entire district, but begin in that city council district. I think it's important to note here that experience and how important it is when going over to the county and dealing with really the vast amount of issues that we have before us. I know the city system intimately. Making that and having that knowledge sitting in that seat at the county is going to be extremely important as we collaborate on these issues, which many of them are quality of life issues. And so that record is clear, and I'm proud of what we've done so far and want to continue that on a broader scale.
Well, as someone who's never been in elected office, I certainly can't take credit for any of the policies or things that I've worked on as an advocate locally. But I did just kind of want to share a little bit of my thoughts on how people make change when they're outside of office. The reason that I got into this race back in February, before the Nathan Fletcher scandal broke, with the support of the majority of our federal and state delegation and lots of local leaders as well, is because I fundamentally believe that we need great people at every level of government with diverse experience who have led in various and variety of capacities. I think it's really important that we have people who are fighters at every level of government in every seat who are going to stand up and protect their communities. I have a track record of doing that, standing up and fighting for the most vulnerable, whether it's people overseas who are being targeted by their own governments for their identities, whether it's in the Marine Corps standing up and fighting against a discriminatory policy that didn't allow women to serve in certain jobs, and changing that policy so that they could, whether it was coming home to San Diego and kind of putting my career aside to take care of my mom when she got sick. That experience really radicalized me, being a caregiver, trying to navigate the system with all of the privilege and education that I have, and still feeling hopeless and frustrated, and knowing that my mom would have hit the streets if she hadn't have had me and her union pension to keep her afloat. That makes me someone who is going to bring that sense of fighting for the most vulnerable into whatever leadership position I'm in, whether it's running a national organization or serving in elected office. I want to bring that experience. I want to bring that ethos to the board and be able to continue to do good work that impacts people right here where we live. Diana, you're muted.
Thank you for that. Thanks for answering the question. Our next question, East Lake Bonita Dem Club. Nadia, do you want to go ahead and ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you. What is your plan to combat the increasing anti-LGBTQ plus non-denominational churches that are increasing in hate rhetoric?
Yeah, we're seeing an increase in hate rhetoric targeting the LGBTQ community across the country. More bills targeting the LGBTQ community, in particular trans youth, have been introduced in state legislatures, city councils, school boards than ever before. It is a targeted and coordinated effort to claw back the rights that folks like me have, the right to serve openly, the right to get married, the right to not be discriminated against because of who I am. And you know, it's going to require leaders who are going to call it out and who aren't going to stand by when these types of things happen. And they happened right here in our community recently. There was a challenge to raising the pride flag in Chula Vista. In La Mesa, there was a council member who introduced a ban that was under the guise of fairness that would ban flags at City Hall, but really was about banning the LGBTQ pride flag to be flown during Pride Month. And I was proud to go out to that meeting along with about 40 other members of our community and tell the council member exactly what I thought of her efforts, that they were exactly what she was trying to do was put us back in the closet, to really make La Mesa a city where you couldn't say gay, where you can't fly a flag that signals that all are welcome here. So it's going to require not just allies, but champions. We know county governments are the front lines of these culture wars. They are what the far right are targeting for things like rolling back reproductive rights, rolling back LGBTQ rights. And we need to have leaders who are going to be willing to prioritize this, who are going to stand up and fight for our community and make sure, most importantly, that our kids feel safe, that they're safe to be who they are in their schools, that they're safe to be who they are in our communities, and they know that leaders have their back.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. And I completely agree. This hate rhetoric is completely and utterly and totally unacceptable. It is the time that we are in. So now more than ever, these various movements, we have to come together against hate, you know, and with regard to a plan, we have laws that apply to hate crimes, but we just don't apply them appropriately across the board. And so have to, as a county, ensure that we are sending the appropriate message, that we will not stand for this type of hate at all, especially against our LGBTQ plus communities. We have at the city have really been instrumental in funding when we talk about trans youth and we talk about the youth population of the LGBTQ community that has higher rates of homelessness just based on different family situations and family not accepting who they are. And we have funded various programs, especially our shelters around that. And I will continue to stand with our LGBTQ community in whatever plan is put forward. But I think we have enough on the books to, if we band together against this, then we can continue to try to tamp it down wherever it tries to rear its ugly head.
Thank you. Our next question, Democratic Women's Club. John Laughlin, are you on the call?
Yes, Diana. I'm the digital
I'll
clock.
time him.
Yeah, no, I was
I'll
going to
be
say,
his timer.
you okay? Yeah, so as the digital clock today, I have a question on technology. And that is, what oversight frameworks would you like to see in place? And what kind of parameters would you set and advise the county on how, when, and where surveillance technologies such as streetlight sensors, license plate readers, and drones could be used? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And this is another initiative that I have led on in partnership with our community coalition, a group of over 40 organizations that have come together across the county to ensure that the city was not spending taxpayer dollars on uses that the taxpayers did not have any idea of what those uses were or how the streetlight cameras, for example, were being used. At the city of San Diego, this was a statewide effort. We collaborated with governments across the entire state to see what worked and what did not. And we came up with a surveillance ordinance and the Privacy Advisory Board, which is a group of experts in these areas that will ultimately provide impact reports to the council and their analysis to the council to ensure that we are, making the appropriate decisions when it comes to how to spend taxpayer dollars on these technologies and what these technologies have the capability to do. So that type of framework certainly can be used at the County of San Diego, because again, it is all about making sure that the supervisors are informed about the type of technology that is being used and its capabilities. At the city, the council in 2016, which I didn't sit on that council at the time, it was over at the ACLU, but the council at that time decided to spend tens of millions of dollars on this system without the community and the broader San Diego community understanding the capability of this. And so when law enforcement started to use them, the community was not informed about that. The framework now has changed so the community members would be informed about that. And I think those are the types of things that we need at the county. We know technology is vast and advancing very quickly. We know we have to keep up. We're not against it being used, but we have to know how it's being used and have a say in that.
I couldn't agree more with everything the council member just said. I think the key with integrating new technologies in any level of government and any institution is to really do a full analysis of what the impact is and have subject matter experts tell us, help us understand, because no body of government is going to be experts on everything. So I think it's incredibly important that if the county plans to implement or add in new technology, that there's a clear and transparent process that involves community stakeholders, and that is actually not just lip service or checking a box, but is actually meaningful, with giving it the due diligence it's due. The other piece that the county in particular is something I'm a bit concerned about, and I think is going to warrant some more significant discussion, is around health records. The county oversees health and human services. Tens of thousands of people come in and out through the county's Health and Human Services Department, through our jails, through our foster youth system. And the security of those records and that data is something that I'm concerned about. I've seen how government bureaucracy works when it comes to adoption of new security technology. And so while I think we definitely need to be thoughtful and thorough about adopting new technologies around surveillance when it comes to security of our records and our data and all of the people who are impacted by that, particularly vulnerable people who are coming through some of our county health services. We need to make sure that we're doing our job and protecting that. So I'd like to bring in actually some data security experts and evaluate the county's data security position at this point, because government's never been really good at protecting our data. We're constantly getting our records breached, and these are the most vulnerable people in our society. We should be protecting them the most.
Thank you. Our next question from Environmental Dems, Richard Ram.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Under weakening federal environmental regulations and pressures from above to roll back California's Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, what will be your approach to protecting the county's open space and multiple species conservation program lands as developers seek to further amend the county's general plan to permit projects beyond the already designated current and future development areas?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit earlier. Thanks for that question, Richard. As part of a coalition here, working with both our Native American partners and local conservation groups, as well as groups like Afro Outdoor and Hispanic outdoor organizations, we were able to put together a plan to provide permanent federal protection for hundreds of thousands of acres right here, tens of thousands of acres right here in San Diego County, that would permanently protect those through the Antiquity Act. And the name of this would be through a national monument designation. They're non-contiguous parcels, so they're all over the county, and they actually stretch all the way up to Riverside and Imperial County. But this designation would be something that would be permanent. And so another thing that it brings to the table is a steady flow of resources for land management, appropriate staff that would, I think if anyone's been up Sunrise Highway after it snows in Idlewild, after the first day or two, it's totally trashed. We just don't have the janitorial staff or the resources to take care of our public lands appropriately. So this would bring a new federal pipeline of funding to successfully manage our land in an appropriate way under one conservation management strategy. So whether or not it was BLM land or National Forest Service land, they would all be under one strategy, which would increase our ability to ensure that the diversity of species there are being addressed in the same way, that fire management is being addressed in the same way. So that coalition, the proposed name is Mutkapsho Quave Kush, which is a Kumeyaay and Luiseño name. That is still in motion. It will probably take several years, but it's going to take a sustained and integrated effort from the county in particular to see it across the finish line. So I'd be very committed to ensuring that happens.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Richard. And this is the kind of the dance that we have to do between development and environmental issues, which I take both of them very seriously. And the reason why I say dance is because we know that we desperately need housing, and that we need that infrastructure to support, housing and job centers. But we also have so many beautiful habitats. We have beautiful open spaces, natural environments that should be protected. So when I did serve on the Regional Housing Needs Assessment Committee, we did vote that 61% of the 170 or so thousand units that we did need to develop over the next 10 years, that they were in the transit priority areas, and not necessarily sprawled out. So I think that is important, but we do have a lot of lands already that are developed that can absorb these additional developments, and we don't want to encroach on any green space, but also support the adoption of a climate resilience plan that would ensure the risk, those risks to our bluffs, to our beaches, sensitive habitats. We will put those in place to address those risks. I think that also when we talk about the general plan and we talk about the housing element in particular, and we talk about how when a law comes down from the state, then we have to go back and amend those plans. This is an important time to include site plans, which sometimes give more specificity and protect from some of the additional development that could go on in some of our green space. So just being able to keep on top of that and ensuring that however we amend that general plan will reflect our priorities with protecting our green space. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. And our next question, Veterans Democratic Club. Do we have Mark Grazik on the call or someone from Veterans Club?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No further questions. Our first question was answered quite well. Thank you very much.
Wait, I'm sorry, Mark, there was a second question. Do you not want to ask the one about Fletcher that I have here from Scott Schaefer?
Could you please read it? He's not able to come to the meeting.
No problem.
Could you? Thank you so much.
So the question is, Supervisor Fletcher pledged to represent and improve the life of San Diego's veterans. What would you do as our county supervisor to improve the life of San Diego veterans?
Thanks again for the question. Yes, so I think in the last question, I sort of answered that in ways that with the centers that we build up to ensure that Veterans Affairs are part of service to our communities within our communities so that our veterans do not have to travel very far to get the things that they need. Also reforming the Office of Military and Veteran Affairs at the county to ensure that needs are being met and that office is fully resourced is important. One thing that we have to focus on when we talk about our veterans who are so important to our communities is housing, right? And so in my current capacity, we brought the first veteran housing development in the City Council District 4, working with our American Legion Post 310. And so that would have full wraparound services, access to benefits. The county needs to partner in on these types of developments to make sure that there are wraparound services as needed. I think that is a way to increase quality of life. But within the system, certainly the county Office of Military and Veteran Affairs, I think that being kind of the center of how we communicate and how we show our veteran community where our priorities actually are. We resource that well and make sure that it is running efficiently and partnering with our Veterans Affairs and the other agencies that provide resources for our veterans. I think that is definitely going to improve the quality of life, and I'll be dedicated to doing that as County Board of Supervisors.
One thing that's interesting to note is that the state of California is one of the only states in the country that taxes veterans' retirement benefits. There's been a big effort to change that. I think since we know that veterans are often some of the most vulnerable in our society, that would be a great first step to just kind of put a little bit of the resources they owned back in their pockets and make them have the ability to navigate rising prices and rising costs a little bit easier. We've actually made some great strides on veteran homelessness, in particular in San Diego County. It's down 30%, but I do believe we can get to functional zero, meaning not a single veteran is on the street, but that's going to require sustained effort and direct collaboration with our partners. The reason that we've been able to make that progress is the federal government has invested funds and San Diego County has taken advantage of them. There are other populations who are vulnerable that are going to or are about to become places where, or populations that will have access to some of the resources that vets already have, like veterans have access to housing vouchers. Those are federally funded, and that's been a big help in getting vets into housing, transitional housing, and then permanent housing. President Biden has a new item in his budget this year to provide the same sort of voucher to foster youth. When they turn 18 and age out of the system, oftentimes they don't have a place to go. A staggering statistic in San Diego County, 1 in 4 children exiting the foster care system in our county go homeless. That's unacceptable. These are the county's kids. And so we need to go after that new subsidy program, make sure Child Welfare Services has the staff available to implement that program so that we are moving these kids out of the system into stable housing where they can access the services, go to school, start their lives as young people with a roof over their head. So I think some of the successes we've seen in San Diego with veterans in particular, we can apply to other populations as well.
Okay, thank you. We actually completed the second round of questions that were submitted by the clubs. Since this forum is specifically for clubs, we do have some questions that have been submitted from La Jolla Dems. Do we have Rafael on the call?
Yes. Thank you, Deanna. Question, the 2020 BBC Disparity Report for San Diego stated that there are low percentages of government contracts being awarded to prime contractors from diverse communities. If you are elected supervisor for District 4, would you support adopting best practices from other cities in California that have successfully broken down barriers and have increased the participation of contractors who have been left out of the process and opportunities?
Yeah, how the county puts out its request for proposals and puts out its request for bids is one of the biggest ways we can shape both who gets business, who gets awarded a contract, whether that's a nonprofit or a for-profit, which communities benefit, and what the labor standards are in those contracts. And so I was actually out on the line with the Teamsters this morning who are striking up in Kearney Mesa for better pay and benefits. Those benefits include things like bathroom breaks. I mean, these people are asking for very basic things that would make their life and their job livable. And one of the things that I was speaking with their business manager about is the fact that when the county puts out a contract, it doesn't necessarily specify all of the things down to the subcontractor level that would allow the county to evaluate whether or not the workers are being paid a living wage or a workable wage in San Diego County, something that allows them to actually live where they work. So when it comes to contracting RFPs, whether nonprofit or for-profit, there has been some significant analysis done about whether or not nonprofits in particular, the bulk of the funding goes to some of these way bigger organizations, and the smaller community-based organizations get left out. So I think we could have we should look at best practices from other counties. We should sit down and have a community-informed conversation about where people feel like they are getting left out by the current contracting processes, and figure out a way to ensure that our community-based organizations, our community-based contractors, or contractors from diverse communities across San Diego County are getting a fair shot. Because if you don't have a team of 30 lawyers to compete, you're probably going to get left out. So I do think there's a lot we can do, and that could have a really big impact.
Mr. Parr, thank you so much for the question and your advocacy around this issue. My parents lost their business because of Prop 209. Prop 209 required and was mandated that businesses have to subcontract with minority businesses. Or Prop 209 abolished that affirmative action. When that happened, so many minority businesses went out of business, or their net worth decreased immensely, and it has cost the state of California billions of dollars. So that is the major issue, because we have tried to go around this issue. We've tried to set up separate enterprises and ways to qualify to get incentives if you're a small business of color. It does not work. It is not working. And so advocacy around what then Assemblymember, now Secretary of State, brought through Prop 13, getting the state to finally realize that this is hurting us. It's hurting all of us and directly hurting our businesses of color is very, very important. I've always advocated for that. I think that some of my advocacy and why I am here today is seeing what my parents went through. Hardworking people who lost everything because the good old boy system did not have to do business with them anymore, so they did not. And so that is really the crux of it. We've really tried all of the other issues. And now at the city, I'm championing really going against some of the legal precedent that has been set and saying that there's a clear disparity here. We're going to prioritize our minority businesses, and we're just gonna see if we get sued, we're gonna see where it takes us because it's not fair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next question we have from Dr. Banerjee.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so new data from Stop AAPI Hate found that nearly 50% of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders report facing some type of discrimination, shunning, etc. What will you do and how will you prioritize protecting and stopping AAPI hate once in office?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. So when we were facing the uptick of anti-Asian hate, as soon as the pandemic was starting to surface, I partnered with former Council President Georgia Gomez to bring a resolution forward at the City Council to bring awareness to this issue, because it is so important. And I stand with the AAPI community on these issues and have shown that through my votes and my relationship to make sure that every single person, no matter what they look like and who they are safe in our communities. And so as we build out the community networks to help I know some of our seniors get to where they need to get because there was so much fear at that time and it's still there. I've been willing and am willing to help with building out those networks, bringing more awareness with regard to our law enforcement. They've also done a lot around this issue to bring awareness to community, but that resolution really showed that we, again, we're not going to stand for this. If this was not right, we were not going to sit by and let it happen. It is not acceptable. And we took that platform to try to make sure that we were communicating that throughout the San Diego region. There are so many things that can be done in partnership with community-based organizations and the actual impacted community and law enforcement and elected officials and the broader community. But I have done that work and I'm willing to continue to do that work for the AAPI communities and our communities abroad. Just like I said before, these are things that we need to rally around with each other. And I have been shown a leader to build those types of coalitions, and I will continue to do so.
Thanks for the question, Indro. I think that number is probably underreported, and that we know that things are bad, but it's probably worse than we're aware of. And so I think there's a couple things come to mind. One of the things that strikes me the most about the time that we're in is how much hateful speech there is in our world, and that we know that directly translates into violence. We've seen it, the correlation. The beginning part of my career was focused around genocide and mass atrocity, where governments were actively perpetrating against their own people based on their identity. And it scares me to see some of the things that would have been warning signs in a faraway place for a coming conflict happening right here at home. So I think at the very baseline, it starts with calling things out, naming them, and saying them out loud. I would want to have there is a large population of businesses in District 4 that are AAPI owned. I think one of the ways the county could be helpful is by providing grants to business owners who might feel like their businesses are being targeted. There's definitely been a spike that helped them invest in security systems, basic things that kind of protect them and their assets. But I also think we need to invest in culturally competent reporting mechanisms so that we actually get a full sense of what the scope of the problem is. And that includes sending people out into communities who are from those communities, who can talk to folks, who can have a conversation that's trusted, and where we can get a clearer sense of the picture, because that will inform how we direct law enforcement assets, how we direct funds to protect and secure communities that might feel unsafe. And those are some tangible things I think we could do to address the issue.
Thank you both.
Thank you. We have one more question from Pacific Beach Dems Club. So they'll ask a question, and then after that final question, then we'll move into closing comments. So each of you will have 3 minutes for your closing comments. So Wendy, please ask your question.
Hi, thanks. The city of San Diego right now is considering an unauthorized camping ordinance, which attempts to address homeless encampments, but instead appears to me, at least, to further criminalize homelessness. What policies do you support for dealing with homeless encampments?
Yeah, well, I don't think we can arrest our way out of homelessness. If somebody is moved off the street and into the jail for a 72-hour hold and then cycled right back out onto the street, what has that achieved? To me, I think that, and I'm sure the council member can speak more about where the details of that ordinance are now, but from the perspective of the county, if we say we're going to put people, or that people need to move into shelters, we need to provide the space for them to go. And right now we don't have enough emergency beds. We don't have shelters that meet the needs of the homeless population entirely. So there's a couple ways the county can be helpful with that. One, building prefab emergency shelter housing. We're doing this in San Jose County. They're doing this in Santa Clara County, using county land, putting prefabricated small 100-foot shelters or even smaller that have electricity, a little kitchenette, that have wraparound supportive services in them. Those are places that people can be moved directly, who are on the streets right now, and they don't take 10 years to build, because we always say we need more housing, we need more shelters, but those take years and years to build. So let's think creatively about emergency shelter options right away. We also have Care Court coming online in the state of California for people who have acute psychiatric diagnoses, who cannot take care of themselves, who refuse help when they're offered it at the hospitals upon discharge, and wind up back up on the streets. And instead of putting those folks in jail, we now have an opportunity, and it's going to take work. It's definitely not going to be perfect out the gate, but to put those folks into situations where they're being cared for, that they're being monitored, et cetera. So that is going to be a big lift for the county. The Department of Health and Human Services and BHS will be focused on that. I know that the county is preparing as quickly as they can, but that's going to take really sustained leadership and oversight to make sure that we get that piece right, so that this population that keeps cycling back in and out of jails, in and out of hospitals, finally has a place to go where they're taken care of and they get the help they need.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And yes, that ordinance is coming to City Council on June 13th. I do not support it based on the circumstances that we see now. This is something, an issue that comes up every day in every community meeting, in every candidate forum, right, around our homelessness and the issues that we have as a region. However, we are right now, service providers are turning away mothers with 5-year-old children because we do not have a place for them to go. And for us to engage in this type of enforcement at this time, I think it is wrong, and it subjugates our responsibility to provide housing for folks if they want to be housed. And so we are turning people away. It is not right. We have invested heavily in a community action plan. We need to continue to monitor and update that and to follow it because it talks about decriminalization, right, in that plan. And so there are many different things, solutions that we can put on the table, but this is a moral issue. This is the moral issue of our time. And criminalization is going to negatively impact the entire population, but our statistics show that that there is disparate treatment when it comes to people of color who are on the streets and the way that they are treated. So this will not solve the problem the way that it needs to be solved. When there is illegal activity, we understand that, enforcement sometimes has to happen, but this is absolutely not the way, in the way that it is currently written. And we have to be more comprehensive and use taxpayer dollars the way they're supposed to be used.
Thank you. Now for closing comments, again, 3 minutes for each of you.
Janessa, I guess I'll start. Okay. I probably will not take 3 minutes, but I really want to say again, I appreciate each and every one of you and how engaged you are. I think this is a testament to show that I think we may break some records when it comes to turnout on August 15th. We don't know, but we may break some records because this is a very, very important seat. And there are some very real topics and issues that we are facing as a region. I think many of you have heard my story at this point, but when I was in my 20s, I was at Spelman College. I got very sick with an autoimmune illness. My mom and dad had to take care of me, primarily my mother, and she had to forego her responsibilities at the family business and take care of me pretty much full time. The only thing that I could do was put a fork to my mouth to feed myself. I could not cook for myself. I could not bathe myself. There are many things that I could not do. And without my family and my faith in county resources, I would certainly not be before you here today. And so this position really means a lot, that I would be in a position to make decisions about the very services that I had to use, that I had to stand in line, that I had to wait on hold on the phone in order to engage in, that my family so depended upon in order for us to make it through the day and the next month and the next month until I began to recover. And so going through law school, dealing with, mitigating the autoimmune illness, making it through law school, going into practice up at City Hall, making it to the ACLU and running a statewide campaign here within the county. And finally, defeating an incumbent council president and having some of the highest turnout that we had seen in the City Council District 4 in 2018, where, by the way, the clubs did support me and the institution did not. I think that we've come a long way, and I've shown that I'm a fighter, that I can overcome, that I know the systems. My heart is with the people. I am compassionate, and I have what it takes to govern in this seat in the way that we need governance right now in this region. So for that, I hope that I can count on your support. This is a big deal. It's a big race. I am asking for endorsements right out. Please vote to endorse me for County Board of Supervisors District 4. It's important and we need it, and we need the experience. I'm tried and true and been proven to stand on my values, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you all for being here today on a Saturday afternoon. It means a lot, and it means a lot to those of you who I've spoken to one-on-one, who've shared your concerns with me over the last several weeks and months. I just appreciate the work that you've been doing to make San Diego County a better place. When I got into this race, I thought we would be 2.5 years away from an election. And, I was committed to getting in early so that I could have the conversations with every corner of our district. This is San Diego County's most diverse district. We have a large Black population. We have a large Latino population, a large AAPI population, the highest density of veterans and military families in the region, and the heart of the LGBTQ community is based in District 4. My experience is diverse. It is not linear. A human rights advocate to Marine Corps captain to CEO of a national organization. Those things don't necessarily make sense if you don't know me, and you don't know that what motivates me and animates me the most is to solve big problems that people say we can't fix. Well, San Diego County is facing a lot of those problems right now. We are facing problems that government elected leaders have said they're fixing, that said they're working on, pointing to commissions and policies, but the problems keep getting worse. Homelessness is up, crime is up. The climate crisis is not getting better, and we need leaders who are willing to come in, willing to set the bar much higher and ensure that we are actually making progress on the things that we say we care about, especially as Democrats. These problems are not going to be solved by local government alone. They will require intense interaction and collaboration with our state and federal partners. I have that experience. I'm bringing that to the table. I want to put it to work for all of us, for our hometown, for this place that we love, because San Diego shouldn't just be a place that you can afford to live in, but that you can actually love living in. And right now, I think for too many people, we're not even meeting the basic criteria. There are a lot of folks out there who feel like their voices are unheard, who don't know how to access the halls of power, who don't know how to go and get the resources they need. And we need an outsider who understands that there are lots of people like that who want to be a part of the solution, but haven't come up through the ranks necessarily, but that are going to bring value to the conversation as well. So that's what I'm bringing to the table. I believe San Diego deserves a leader who has that experience, who has the empathy and the care to look out for the people who are the most vulnerable, who are in our communities right now and feel like they're not being heard and their problems are not being met. So I'd love to earn your endorsement on whatever club you're in, or if you are a member of the Central Committee, I'm asking for your endorsement as well. And I hope that I can do that over the next couple of days and weeks. Thanks.
Thank you to both of you for being here, and thanks for all the clubs that submitted their questions. Also wanted to give a shout out to Sanara for all the back end work she's done to put this together. So we appreciate that as well. So Sanara, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much to both the candidates for being here, and my apologies to those whose questions we did not get to. This was a very exciting forum. Some very exciting things happened. We thought we were going to have 3 candidates. We had 2. So it kind of gave us an opportunity to ask more questions, but we did have 120 people on the line at one time, which is just wonderful, great participation. But it also meant that there were a few questions that were asked that we weren't able to get to. We prioritized giving, equitable number of questions to each club. So we managed to get into for all the participating clubs who had asked. So thank you very much to all those who participated. I want to say to our candidates again, thank you for being here. I know you're drinking from the fire hose right now. And over the next few days, over the next week, you are being asked to go to a lot of clubs to get endorsements. And there's going to be a lot of questionnaires to fill out, a lot of running around. And all I can do is encourage you to please do your best, because these clubs are where hardcore volunteers are, 120 of them on a Saturday afternoon in June, right? So, you get the support of these clubs and you can have volunteers. You will win their neighborhood, their geography, their affinity group that they represent. So, thank you. I know it's a lot and we're asking a lot of you, just do your best. And the clubs, I ask that you also realize that over the next week, because we are leading up to our endorsement meeting on June 12th at the West Region Caucus, these candidates have many conflicting club endorsement meetings. So, please don't, if they only have a few minutes with their club or something happens, they can't make it. Please also give these candidates grace as well, because this is a very condensed time frame. And then, so lastly, I just want to thank everyone for being here. This is our first big joint club thing of the year. I hope and think it went well. So, thank you for the wonderful team at Club Dev who helped us deal with Zoom bombers today, changes in candidates, extra questions. I mean, it was intense, but I, for one, am happy. And thank you very much. We hope to do a lot more joint club things in the future. So that is it. We promised we'd get these candidates out. They both have hard stops. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanara.
Thank
you. Great job, Sanara.
Thank you, Sanara.
Thank you so much for putting this together, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sanara. This is terrific.
Thank you.
Good job.
Very
Excellent
well done.
work,
Thank
team.
you for that.
Volunteer of the year.
Thanks. Bye.
Good job.
Excellent work.
Oh, there's Billy King.
Hi there.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Really good questions, don't you think?
Yes.
I mean, the questions were so detailed, not general things. They were really well thought out questions. And so this might be a really good methodology for people to consider in the future.
I think so. My only concern was nothing got into depth with mental health issues and programs within the county. I would have liked that, but I might have another chance.
Well,
same
there
thing.
was a mental health question, but you know, I don't know if it was, there was a mental health question.